we are on the eve of the Boxing Day test match between India and Australia, and it might be useful to remember that Boxing Day has nothing to do with the sport where you knock out your opponent. Rather, it is about a Christmas tradition where you put presents in boxes. And why I bring that up, Ayaz, is that in the past few days we've seen tension rising between the camps. There have been controversies such as Jadeja refusing to speak in English and Kohli getting into an argument with the reporter at the airport. So, seeing as you're a veteran of such stores and you've been covering these for decades, what do you make of this need to find this masala and create this fighting narrative?
Well, it's adding a lot of masala to the series, isn't it, Anirudh? I mean, in the last decade, I think perhaps from the 2003 2004 tour, Australia India contests have got this kind of needle edge to it. So in a sense, it's great. It just builds up the tempo of the series. A little heat and little heat and little tension is not such a bad thing when you're looking at a marquee sports event, and which India versus Australia has become. And I think it's also to do with the way this particular series has moved. It's been a roller coaster ride, hasn't it, for both teams? India won at Perth, looked a very good team. India lost at Adelaide, looked a very poor team in many ways. And then there was the drawn test at Brisbane, where you might say India escaped luckily by the skin of their teeth, perhaps. But at the end of the day, you have to look at how they fought hard and have reached the stage where now the series is so evenly poised. So there are as many plus points to India as there are to Australia, and the other way around. So both teams looking, well, strong enough, but also equally vulnerable. And I think I can't wait to get into the actions, as it were, in the Boxing Day test match.
Yeah, so let's talk about the cricket now. So, as for Australia, they've dropped Nathan McSweeney in favor of 19-year-old Sam Constas, and we know Hazelwood has been ruled out of the series. And Travis Head has some sort of injury, but Coach McDonald said that he'd be fine enough to play. So, what are you making of their chances? And do you think they were a bit harsh on McSweeney?
Well, I think both teams have had their problems with the players, the form of players, and the selections that have followed subsequently. I mean, there has been so much talk about Sam Constas at 19 becoming the fourth youngest Australian player to play an international match, and he replaced McSweeney, who himself was a debutant in the first test match. So there's a debate going on whether that was the right thing to do, or whether Constas should have instead come in place of Usman Khawaja, who hasn't made runs either. So Australia are in a bit of a problem about their top order, much like India are. Khawaja, Constas is a debutant. Marnus Labuschagne, I think, is the big disappointment from Australia's point of view. And as I mentioned, Steve Smith, despite the 100 in the previous test match, not really at his best. So it's been a batting shored up by Travis Head's brilliance, and he's got an injury issue, so to speak, going into the match. So it might not be serious, but it's still something that will play on his mind and on Australia's mind. India, on the other hand, also having serious problems at the top of the order, despite Yashasvi Jaiswal's 100 and Virat's 100 at Perth, and thereafter very poor scores by all of them, compounded by the fact of no runs, or virtually no runs for Rohit Sharma. So it's and for Gill and for Pant. So yeah, I mean, both teams have their batting issues. India, of course, also have to, I hope, have recovered quickly enough from the blow of losing R. Ashwin mid-series. One might argue that he was not going to find a chance or a place in the remaining two test matches. But hey, his presence in the dressing room and the fact that he is there would mean a lot to the dressing room, as well as the impact it would have on the Australian dressing room. So I think a lot of things have kind of gone around in this series so far in the first three test matches, and it's difficult to say which way the seesaw tilts at this point in time. You asked me in the first question, what was it like historically earlier? Before 2003-4, I would say that usually a test series would have been decided in Australia's favor. Since 2003-4, there have been first strikes, counter punches, series going on knife's edge almost till the end. And don't forget what happened in the previous two series down under. So all in all, a very fascinating scenario as we head into the Boxing Day test match.
Yeah, so you spoke of Ashwin. So Tanish Kotian has been flown to Australia to replace him in the squad. I don't think he'll play. Maybe he might get a look in Sydney. You never know. But major update was in Rohit Sharma's presser was that his knee is okay, which means he will play. But at what position we don't know. Should he go back to opening, or stay at 6? We don't know. So what are you making of India's chances? And Remember that this pitch is not the one that they won their last two games at. This is a much more bowler-friendly surface, which has been assisting the pace bowlers in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that they would, in fact, make all effort to make it a bowler-friendly pitch, a fast bowler-friendly pitch, despite knowing the havoc that somebody like an informed Jasprit Bumrah can wreak on their own batting. So Australia would go, I think, looking to go one up in the series and rely on their pace bowlers to do it more than their batsmen. Of course, they need the runs for the bowlers, to defend, for the bowlers to defend. But yeah, so I mean, in Melbourne, I would imagine that it certainly won't be a flat track. It'll probably be helping the fast bowlers a lot more. And you talked about Kotian coming in instead of Ashwin. There have been so many, there's been so much shuffling, juggling, players, personnel. If you remember, in the first three test matches, each match we played a different spinner, for instance. Australia, in that sense, have been far steadier where their team selection or the playing 11 selection is concerned. So, what kind of effect that has had on the Indian team remains to be seen. I think Kotian has been brought in more for the fact of the last test being at Sydney, where it usually helps spin bowlers and it's like a backup for either Washington Sundar or Ravindra Jadeja falling ill or getting injured. So, but it gives you some kind of an inkling that India are in a bit of a bother about their spin bowling combo. Yes, Ashwin has now removed himself from the picture, but even otherwise there's a bit of an issue about the spin bowling. So a lot more depends now, I think, more than the first three tests, on Jasprit Bumrah, how he's able to sustain his form and the support he gets from Mohammad Siraj and Akashdeep.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, that match starts Boxing Day, and we'll get back to you right after it. So that's it for this episode of Sports Room. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Andrew. We'll catch up again. Thank you.